In 1968, the Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA, conceived of a packet switch network that would enable universities and government to access remote computers. How did BBN become one of the cornerstones of ARPANET, which of course today is known as the Internet?
Well, actually Dick Bolt had taken primary responsibility, had hired Frank Hart to come with us, and he left Lincoln Lab. Then when he left Lincoln Lab, he took a group of other people with him who were experts on computers. In fact, they worked on the SAGE system at MIT. And so they came over, and we then got this proposal from the government, request for proposal from the government, asking us, and they sent out to about 150 places, asking each one of us to bid on setting up a network that would connect together 19 big computers, each of them are sort of $1.5 million computers then. And the idea of connecting them together was that smaller universities then could just have a tube and a keyboard, and they could hook into that network and use those big computers when they weren't in full use by the local university or government lab. And but they had the concept that it should be set up. They had figured that perhaps it ought to be packet switching, which had been tried already in England. They had the idea that maybe there ought to be a separate little component in each place, and that the local computer would hook into that component, and they call that an interface message processor, or an IMP. And so they had those ideas, but they had no idea how to make it work. They didn't know what programming it would take. They didn't know whether they could even make packet switching work. And in fact, the ARPA people had gone to AT&T and to Bell Labs, and they all said, forget it, these packets will run around forever, they'll never be able to manage them, it's just a haywire idea. And you already could hook this whole thing up to the regular telephone system if you wanted to. And we have the best telephone system in the world, so we don't need this. And however, we, along with I think 15 or 20 others, then sent in proposals saying how we would build a network. And then it turned out that our ideas of how to build a network and Raytheon's were the two best. And then we were quite pleased, and the nation was surprised when a little company took this contract away from the big Raytheon to build this first time ARPA network. Not only that, but Frank Hart was so good with his group that we not only met our deadline, we said we would have it built in a year, in fact less than a year, 9 months, but he also said how much it would cost, and he came through in building the things on time within budget. And in programming, that's almost unheard of.
Absolutely.
And Frank Hart, to me, was one of the best people for doing that. And he put in this first-class group of people together that then built the ARPANET, which then the government supported until the 1980s, when they found that they could turn it over to people like Verizon and Comcast, people like that, who would sell it, and the government would no longer have to support it. And once they stopped supporting it, it would be called the Internet.
Amazing story. Did you have any idea what the utility of the ARPANET could be when you were building it?
Well, not at first. We were just hooking them together so other people could hook into it. But our people then developed an email. And when the network was set up and email was developed, it was discovered that what was really being used on the network was email. That actually using each other's computers was a small part of the operation. 25% we figured was people using computers, and 75% was sending email around. And this became a big thing then in the world. I had no idea that it would be in every home, because that idea couldn't be developed till the PC came out.
Right.
Once we had PCs, you would have email everywhere. And the big development in the 1990s was the www, where you could send out a request and get answers. Whereas before it was just email. You could mail a mail out and somebody'd answer the email. Now you can send a request out and get all kinds of answers.
So, if I recall correctly, the very first email was in fact sent from BBN. Is that right, in 1968?
Well, I think so. That's what I'm told.
And you have an employee
that point.
that you had an employee at the time who, if I recall, is still employed by BBN today, who
That's right.
invented the @ sign
That's right.
as a symbol for email.
That is correct.